When people start building backend system, they usually imagine the happy path. Request comes in, database saves the data, response goes back, everyone is happy. But real systems do not fail politely like that. In productions, thing fails in weird ways. A service gets slow, a retry happens twice, a message gets processed again, the cache serves the old data, the database gets overloaded, or one small dependency break and suddenly half the app starts behaving badly. So in this video, I want to talk about how backend systems actually fail in real life and the design patterns engineers use to stop one small issue from becoming a full-blown outage. So let's start with a simple example. Imagine you are building an order service. User clicks place order. Your backend receives the request. It writes the order to the database. Then it sends a confirmation email. Easy, right? But now, let's say the email service is slow. What happens? If your code waits too long, the user feels the app is broken. If your code retries too aggressively, you may send duplicate emails. If your code fails the whole request because email failed, then a tiny side feature is now blocking the code flow. This is where real backend problems start. The biggest issue in backend system is not always the failure itself. It is the chain reaction. One slow dependency can block threads. One retry loop can flood another service. One bad message can get stuck and keep failing again and again. One overloaded database can slow down every request in the system. So the real question is not just how do I make this work, it is how do I make this fail safely. That shift in thinking changes everything. A lot of people think retry is the fix for every backend problem. And yes, retry do help, but retry can also make things worse. If a service is already down and hundreds of clients keep retrying immediately, now you have more traffic hitting a system that is already struggling. That can turn a small incident into a bigger one. So the better pattern is retry only when it makes sense, add backoff, add a max retry limit, and never assume retry means safe by default. Because retry is useful, but blindly retry is dangerous. Now here's a pattern I really like, the circuit breaker. Think of it like this. If a dependency is clearly failing, don't keep banging on its door every second. Pause the cause for a while, let the dependency recover, and protect the rest of your system in the meantime. That's the whole idea. It is basically your backend saying, okay, this thing is unhealthy right now. I'm not going to keep making the problem worse. This is one of those patterns that doesn't make your system invisible. It just stops the failure from spreading everywhere. Now let's talk about one of the most underrated backend idea, idempotency. Say a user clicks pay and request gets sent twice because the first response was slow. Without protection, you might charge the user twice. This is real production nightmare. Idempotency solves this by making the operator safe to repeat. So even if the same request arrives again, the system knows it should not perform the action twice. This is such a good pattern because it feels simple, but it protects you from a lot of ugly real world behavior. If I had to pick one concept that makes backend system feel production ready, idempotency would be near the top. Another thing that helps a lot is moving slow work out of the request path. For example, the user places an order. The order gets saved immediately, but the email, invoice, analytics, and notification can happen later through a queue or async worker. Why? Because user care that one core action worked. They do not need to wait for every side effect in real time. This is very practical design choice. It makes your system faster, more resilient, and easier to recover when one downstream service is misbehaving. This is one simple but powerful. If one part of the system fails, do not make the whole app unusable. My recommendation, go down, but checkout still works. Maybe notifications are delayed but order still gets placed. Maybe the dashboard shows the cache data instead of fresh data for a short time. This is graceful degradation. And honestly, this is how good system feels stable to user. Not because nothing ever goes wrong, but because when something goes wrong, the app is still stays useful. Now here's the part many teams forget until it is too late. You cannot fix what you cannot see. If your logs are useless, your metrics are vague, and your tracing is missing, Then when the system breaks, you are basically guessing in the dark. Good observability means you can answer question like, which service became slow first? Did retry increase? Did the database latency spike? Did one downstream dependency start failing? Was this traffic a problem or a bug? That is how engineers debug real incident. Not by staring at the screen and hoping the answer appears. By having enough signals to follow the story. So yeah, real backend systems fail all the time. They fail because service gets slow. They fail because retries pile up. They fail because queues get stuck. They fail because database get hot. They fail because one dependency goes bad and everything else depends on it. But the point of backend design is not to pretend failure won't happen. The point is to build a system that absorbs that failures. That is what retries, circuit breakers, idempotency, async processing, graceful degradation, and observability are really doing. They are not magic, they are just damage control. And once you start thinking that way, backend design gets a lot more interesting. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you like this video, please like, share, and subscribe. Thank you. Peace.